Good evening and welcome to the Z-Trigger Expanded Universe podcast. My name is William Hill.
I'm Brandon Harris.
I'm nobody. No, I'm Trent.
A reviewer has no name.
No, just take me back to
I am the man with no name.
Take me back to the days when we were playing Halo and we would get killed by nobody.
Yes.
Now that's that's not like GoldenEye where you can win the award for Lemming Award in multiplayer for killing yourself.
You know, as many of these James Bond novels I've read, I keep wondering if I'll buy the John Gardner adaptation of GoldenEye to read someday. I'd have to find it, I guess. He wrote several. So
I recently got Diamonds Are Forever, which is known as like the worst of the Fleming books.
I did not hate it. I kind of liked it. I didn't like it as much as Moonraker, but I really like Moonraker. So
I haven't read Moonraker yet. I've only read Live and Let Die, Goldfinger, and
Live and Let Die was hard to read.
I liked Live and Let Die.
I did too, but man, was it
hell.
racist. Yes.
But it was enjoyable. I was like, oh yeah, they moved that to that movie, and yeah.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of License to Kill in there, actually.
Oh yeah, which is great for me because I love License to Kill.
As do I.
Probably, like, such an underrated Bond film.
I like both of the Dalton films.
Oh, so do I. I think they're just painfully underrated in the annals of Bond films, and partially because they get more of the Ian Fleming character than we'd seen since Connery.
Yep.
And since they are adaptations, very loose adaptations, but since they are adaptations of Ian Fleming's work, you can't just sit there and ignore that character. Thankfully, they deleted the stuff from Fleming's character that's not as good.
Yeah.
Like the insane sexism and racism.
The Connery ones had some of the sexism.
Oh, absolutely, and
he smacked up women big time.
Yeah, and Roger Moore just fucked them all.
Well, no, they tried to make Roger Moore do the Connery thing with slapping women and threatening them, like in Man with a Golden Gun.
Man with a Golden Gun, yes.
But he was like, "This isn't my." This doesn't look right with me.
This is not my game. I like how he said it. He said that he would that his Bond would bed a woman, not beat them.
This kind of thing is not my bag,
baby. By Austin Powers. All right, so we are doing book reviews on the Expanded Universe show. If you're unfamiliar with our format and what we do here. We are going to review some more Bond novels someday, or at least I will, because I do dig some Ian Fleming violence and traveloguing, because that's really what Ian Fleming's books are. And but tonight we're going to be doing quite a broad spectrum of stuff. But before we get into it, what is everybody reading right now?
I'm reading 3 things. Yeah, I mean, I always have a comic book to read, and as I'm going to be doing the first half of this comic series tonight, I'm still going through the second half of the Dark Tower comics. So I'm reading the Little Sisters of Illyria adaptation right now.
Nice. I have that in a collection, actually. Legends, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah, I have it in a Stephen King short story collection.
Nice.
Everything's eventual. Let's see. I'm listening to the audiobook of A Wizard on Mars, which is the next to most recent of the Young Wizard books by Diane Duane. And I'm physically reading Peter Straub's novella collection, Houses Without Doors. I've gotten through the short stories. Now I'm up to the two or three novellas, and yeah, those will take some time.
All right. How about you, Brandon?
I am not working on that much.
I'm similarly working on too much, but we'll get to that.
No, after a little bit, if I don't continuously read something, I just drop it. But right now, I'm reading Metro 2033. It was
some Russian sci-fi.
Yes, Russian post-apocalyptic sci-fi that influenced the games. Games were not first; the book was first.
Okay, I was wondering about that.
Yes, it was a very, very popular Russian science fiction novel, and much like Russian, thing, they love letters. I cannot pronounce the names of the cities. The individuals' names are very simple. They like Andre and Anton and stuff like that. Their individual names are so simple in Russia, but when they start to go name cities, and in this case bits and pieces of the metro, it's like the average character length is 13. And I'm like,
are you exaggerating, or did you count?
No, I'm dead serious. After a while, I started noticing. I was like, let me count this, and the average name of these cities was at least 10 to 13 characters long, and I'm like, I can't pronounce these. So you're going to be Metro A, Metro B, and I'm just going to keep going down the alphabet because I have to have some way to, attach some type of location marker with a name. Otherwise, I'm going to be very lost. Because I'm obviously I suck at pronunciation, and when you get that far, I'm like, no, I'm not going to try. That may be very American of me, but I'd rather do what I can to make the novel readable for me than sound like an asshole trying to pronounce these names very horribly.
Fair enough for the sake of discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten very far, like 20, maybe 30 pages. It seems like it's going to be a little bit of a slow read, but
that sounds like my experience with Russian science fiction. But my experience with Russian science fiction is exclusive to Andrei Tarkovsky films.
I have read most of that series.
Which one? The one that Stalker's based on?
Mm-hmm. No, not Stalker.
So you read Roadside? Read Roadside Picnic?
No. I'm getting my people mixed up.
Yeah.
I know. I've read the. Well, I think this was more fantasy. The one that the Night
Watch.
Yeah, Night
Watch.
Based on.
Sergei something.
Name's too long to pronounce.
Yes.
Yeah, his name's very long.
Once again. But I've read most of that one. I plan to read the stuff Stalker's based on. That's definitely a must read eventually.
Our buddy Sean's Our buddy Sean's a big fan of Roadside Picnic, so that's why I was wondering if you'd read it.
No, that was definitely on the list to eventually read.
Very nice. As for me, I am sadly, I know, don't judge me too much, I'm still working on Wise Man's Fear. I'm getting there. I've only got 160 pages left.
Oh, well, that's not much. I mean, it's not like you have 300-400 pages left.
This is true, but it still feels like an eternity because of how long it's taken me to read so far. Other than that, I finished the book I'm going to be reading tonight, which I'm going to segue right into reviewing that, because this book... Alright, so the book I'm going to be reviewing is The Death of Bunny Munro. It's by Nick Cave of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. So
I thought you were going to say it was by Nick Cage.
No, I don't think Nick Cage has read a book yet, but if he did write a book, I would read it. No joke. I'd have no problems doing that, because how could you not want to read that? So, for those who don't know, Nick has always, been known for writing fairly grim stuff, to say the least. And his a lot of his songs are referred to as what he calls murder ballads. You know, songs about people dying in particularly horrific ways. Very folk-oriented blues kind of stuff, you know, especially on the early stuff. So, and a lot of his interest in terms of the stories he tells in his songs are very Old Testament, good versus evil, and in the world that he describes his songs taking place, the devil is very much real. God and the devil are very much real, and those aspects are very much a part of the songs that he writes. And I say this because in the background of the death of Bunny Munro, a man is going through England dressed up as the devil, complete with horns, his body's painted blue, and he kills people with a garden fork. This is a background detail that becomes very important later on. How spoilery should I go with this review, guys?
I don't know.
Because this book's going to be very hard to describe if I can't talk about the whole thing.
Use your own judgment.
I'm going to go full tilt on the spoilers and say take the ride anyway. Even though you know how this ends, so to speak, in the end. Because this book will be very hard to describe and discuss in full otherwise. So, the novel, the book of The Death of Bunny Munro, is about the eponymous Bunny Munro, who is a beauty product salesman. And the opening of the book has him talking to his wife on the phone. She is terrified and heartbroken because Bunny will not come home from his latest sales trip. And she's really upset. She's really afraid that this strange man in a devil costume is going to come and kill her. And that all these horrible things are going to come to pass because he's not there to protect her. So he says, oh, it's me, okay. And then he hangs up on her, and you find out that he's been with a hooker this night. And the hooker leaves after fucking him again. And before he even goes home the next day, he has sex with a waitress in the dining room of the hotel that he's staying in. So what you can already tell about this book is that Bunny Munro, the protagonist of this novel, is a complete pile of dog shit. This man is one of the worst people I've ever read as the main character of a book. It's not even funny, the fact that he's such a shitty person. He just is terrible. So he finally makes it home that day, and I'm not exaggerating at all when I say the entire third chapter of this book is him gawking at the girls that live in the neighborhood where his wife and 8-year-old son live, or 9-year-old son, excuse me, and basically describing them in the most lewd, sexual way possible. And then he gets home and finds out that his wife has strangled herself with one of his she strangled herself. I don't remember what she strangled herself with. Wearing the lingerie that she wore the night they got married. She's destroyed all of his clothes. Their house is a wreck. And yes, their 9-year-old son is home, not able to get to his mom during what had happened. So, after the funeral and whatnot passes, he takes his son out on the road to try and peddle his cheap, shitty beauty products to the most desperate women he can possibly find. Now, that's the basic parts of the book. That is the skeleton of what happens in this novel. You have Bunny going on the road, and it's a very brief road story about a father and son that have no fucking relationship whatsoever. And how they how they completely do not cope with being around one another at all. That's the only way to really describe their relationship. They don't have anything in common. Bunny's not a good father because he's reeling from his wife's death, and he's never actually, had anything to do with his son because he stayed on the road and, kind of ignored his wife despite the fact that he considers her depression over the fact that he is a terrible husband to be a mental illness. Now, what you're probably thinking at this stage is this is a fairly, standard work of literature, wouldn't you say? It's kind of depressing. It's got, morally gray characters and things like that. That sounds like regular literature, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now we're going to get to what makes this book completely fucking bonkers. So, the night that his wife dies, Libby, that's her name. The night that Libby dies, he thinks that she's still in the house. He can kind of feel this strange presence of his deceased wife kind of lingering in the house. And Bunny Jr., well, he actually talks to his mom as he's in bed. And this is only the first of what is numerous, very strange and uncomfortable kind of supernatural aspects to the story that culminate in the third act with Bunny having a nice long chat with his mom while his dad is having sex with a girl that looks way too much like Avril Lavigne, and she's like completely coked out, and like he's basically raping her. Let's just say it. He's basically raping her. And then her pimp basically comes home. His name is Mushroom Dave, by the way, and yeah, he's a drug dealer. And that entire sequence was just, oh my god, wow, not okay. There's so much of this book that's just not okay. Like you're watching something that you shouldn't see. Any of the scenes where Bunny and his son are in like whenever he's trying to explain his business as a beauty product salesman to his son, it's like, I should not be watching this. I should not be seeing this man like masturbating in this like disheveled house where a drug dealer lives with his coked out girlfriend. And then to just make it even more insane. So obviously the book is called The Death of Bunny Munro. So Bunny's gonna die. You know that from reading the book at the very beginning. It's obvious that is the end point that this novel is leading up to. When he does die, that's when shit got even more bonkers, and I knew, and in a way I was waiting for the two plot points to happen. So you remember me telling you about the man in the devil costume throughout the book?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever the devil man is finally caught by the police, because he gets caught by the police, Bunny overhears these two girls talking about the news story, and basically the horns are real. His skin is actually red. It's the devil. The devil is a real, tangible person in this very real setting that this book takes place in. Because this book is our world, it is a tangible version of reality as we know it. But the fucking devil is real and walking around Brighton. So when Bunny finally dies, a concrete truck hits his side of their car, and it throws him from the car. And then he gets struck by fucking lightning. The first thing that happens is that he's barely able to see. His eyes are sewn shut. And the devil is like, I can't believe they gave me 25 to life. Talking about, being arrested by the police for what he did all around England. And then he fucks Bunny. You get all of this far too descriptive language about the devil's long, thin, scalding, all of this dick fucking him to death. And then you get the scene where they're at a old-fashioned holiday camp in England so that he can apologize to all the women he had sex with. And then he dies. That's the third act of this fucking insane book kind of wrapped up short. And it's so unreal, like, but you don't know that it isn't metaphorical death or not, because I'll be damned if it didn't kind of, like, seem realistic within the context of the book. But it was not real at all, and it slowly kind of dissolved into him lying on the street dying, and his son being perfectly okay with the fact that, yes, over the course of 5 days, both of his parents died. It is every bit as bleak as any of Nick's songs are, but I'll be honest when I say that it works so damn well. But there's so much that I'm leaving out of the overall flow of this book and how it's constructed and the other people that Bunny works with that are all just as skeezy and shitty as he is. Because Bunny basically works with a bunch of fucking perverts, and he's just one of them, and it's just part of that job, I guess. But it never feels right. Like, nothing these people say ever feels like something like real human beings should say. But there's enough, like, it's believable enough that there are people as disgusting as this in the world. And this book just makes them all the more real and relatable. And what's bizarre, though, is that throughout all of this, like, all of the things I said, would either of you say that Bunny Munro is a decent person? Fuck no. He is a disgusting human being, yet his son still loves him. And between them, there are a lot of scenes of actual humanity, and it's mostly from the fact that his son is just so damned innocent that it never really dawns on him. I mean, he even has a realization, yeah, my dad's a piece of shit, but he's my dad. Hey, look, isn't it funny that he's running out of this house with his pants around his knees being chased by a man with an iron? So it's very hard for me to say that this book is, like, the book never makes Bunny out to be the villain any more than he actually is. It never vilifies him more than it has to, but it shows just how damaged he is from all of the things going on. But ultimately what really made this story excellent to me, beyond the language, because the language is there, and it's not like insane postmodernist difficult language either. Like, it's pretty approachable fiction for, you know, literature, and, you know, because we don't really discuss much in the way of literature on this show, and so let me make it clear that this is a very approachable book in that regard. But I would not. I've got to say that a lot of what people should know going into this is that if you are in any way a prude, do not read this book. There's a running, like I said before, with him, you know, having sex with the girl who looks way too much like Avril Lavigne. Yeah, there's actually an apology in the afterword to this book to Avril Lavigne and Kylie Minogue for how much he sexualizes them in this book, because Bunny basically fantasizes about their vaginas anytime that he's, like, lonely or whatever, or without a woman at that particular time. Get used to just how much of that is in the book, like, going in, because it's not the entire book, but there's a fucking lot of it. And it's so, like I said, it's not for prudes at all. But yes, I give this book a recommendation with a few caveats. It's not
not for everyone.
No, it's not a pleasant book either. I mean, if you are a fan of Nick's songwriting, and you kind of get that very Old Testament, like, level of morality play going on, and you can dig that, oh man, go for it. Like, buy this book now while you listen to the podcast. And again, if you just like how he writes songs, you're kind of a shoo-in there anyway, because he writes his books in a very similar tonality. where in this realm the good and evil exist, and the evil are punished. And Bunny gets the punishment he deserves, and he has to apologize for it before he does finally die. And by apologize for it, I do mean that he takes it in the ass from the devil himself. And he actually has to
how very this is the end. How very
yeah, no joke, right? So yeah, cool. It's a great book, but man, because I wanted to talk about it last week, because when I was reading it, I was like, I think I've got an idea what this book is, and then it started really like throwing curveballs with the supernatural stuff, and I was like, I cannot possibly make any assumptions about how this book ends. And I'll tell you, I did not see the holiday camp thing coming up at the ending, and that turned out to be very not predictable at all scene. But yeah, excellent book. And also, if I haven't mentioned it before, go listen to some Nick Cave music. His music's excellent. And he's done some excellent scores as well, from what I understand. I haven't heard any of his soundtracks other than the one he did for The Road, which was a film by John Hillcoat. John Hillcoat being the director of the film he wrote. He wrote the screenplay for a film called The Proposition, which I have not seen. So, prolific author as well. Prolific writer in general. So, yes. I think it's somebody else's turn now.
You go ahead, Brandon.
Okay. No, I'm just joking. I read a book by an author named Jim Hines. It's called, I say the Libriomancer. How would you?
I think based on how you spelled it to me, it's Libriomancer.
Okay. I discovered this book just browsing Goodreads. I think I've seen the cover before, and I just happened to click on it again, and as you scroll down, there's this big old write-up by Patrick Rothfuss. So I was like, oh, he's very selective about what he actually writes reviews for. He'll review a book, but only books that he truly enjoys will he actually write a review for. So I was like, I'll check it out. Of course, this is in the urban fantasy style of things. And in this world, there are several different forms of magic. And one of them involves books in a very literal sense. Normally you hear about wizards, they use a book, they read a book, and they cast a spell. In this, they reach inside a book and pull something out.
Oh my god, it's the Page Master for adults.
Sorta, yeah. Say, like, for example, you're reading Old Man's War, and the character decides, oh god, I'm unarmed and there's a bunch of people trying to kill me. I reach inside the book, steal John's gun, and I use it against whoever is fighting me. Or say I have a copy of the First and Future King, Once and Future King. I reach in and I pull out Excalibur. Basically whatever book you have, as long as it can fit through the book, you can do it. There are a few exceptions in this world, because they have thought of things like, what if a person decided they were going to go into a post-apocalyptic world that was devastated by a virus and pull out the virus into our world? Well, the people who grandfathered this magic thought about these certain type of things, and they have locked those books to everyone. No one can actually get into them. They can read them, but you can't reach in and actually pull anything out to protect, real life. So, because some dumbass would actually do it, because humans, why not?
Because humans is a very good reason to keep things safe from a lot of things.
So, because of what you can do, what certain people can do, you have a lot of different variety of beings in this world. Some because they were pulled from these books, or the one that you get most is vampires. Basically, every form of vampire exists in this world because some dumbass has reached inside a book and gotten bitten because they're dumbass. And by doing that, they bring in the new variation of the, vampire virus. So I think I remember reading at the point this book takes place, there's like 32 different vampires in this world. The ones that you find most of the time at this point are fucking Stephanie Meyer vampires.
Oh my god, are you serious?
They call them sparklers.
Oh my god.
But they're not. A lot of these things they're not taken seriously. Like they're like, yeah, you have all these beings, but against us, I mean, we can literally reach inside a book and pull out like full out tactical gear with a minigun and mow them all down. I mean, they treat them like they're nothing because they are nothing, especially the sparklers, as they call them. Like I said, they are treated as next to nothing because they are nothing. They fucking sparkle. You can see them a mile away. But this book centers around a guy named Isaac, who is a Libriomancer who used to be a field agent, but because of his recklessness with his abilities, they decided that he can't do it anymore because of certain dangers. Like if you use your abilities too much, this thing happens where they saw you become possessed by the personalities that within the book. Say like with Sherlock Holmes, you could be possessed by the not Sherlock, but the other guy.
Moriarty.
Yeah, you could become Moriarty. And all of a sudden, you're this fucking genius psychopath with the ability to fuck around with books. And so that's shit they don't want.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
Yeah. So, people who abuse their abilities are not allowed to actually practice for safety reasons. And of course, he is a main character of a book, so he's the typical main character, and he goes above and beyond what he should do in order to, help protect or whatever. Good noble quality, but in this world, it can be dangerous. So, of course, it follows the standard tropes of urban fantasy. There is an investigation of some kind because the creator of this form of magic has disappeared, and certain breeds of vampire are disappearing, and those vampires are, in return, retaliating and killing random people because they think they're being attacked. So he, through a course of events, has to end up, searching out what's going on and why. It was an interesting read. I don't know if I'll rate it as highly as Patrick Rothfuss, who gave it a 5-star review, which is why I picked it up. I was like, damn, 5 stars. I was entertained. I would not sit here and say, I would put this on the pedestal of Dresden or some of the other higher breeds of urban fantasy that I've read. But it was fairly entertaining, and I enjoyed the fact that while the magic revolved around books, they did not go out of their way to constantly reference real books, outside of referencing like the Lord of the Rings or H.G. Wells sometimes.
Classics rather than contemporary stuff.
And even then, the classics was very rare. Most of the time, they made up their own books and histories for books and stuff like that. So it doesn't try to play off nostalgia.
Right.
Because I was a little worried about that when I was first started reading. I was like, uh-oh. It's like, I hope you don't constantly reference real life books all the time and pull, say, hey, you remember the One Ring? We're going to talk about the One Ring. Which, I mean, they do, but of course, The Lord of the Rings is also one of those books that are locked because we don't want the fucking Great Eye to be coming out onto our world.
Why not? Come on.
Yeah. This book, of course, like all urban fantasy, well, not all, but this one does have a romance subplot. But this one's a little weird. When usually there is a love triangle, it's between two men and a woman. This time around, maybe because the guy's a little, I don't know, I guess he's a pervert. He decided to be a woman, a man, and a woman. With the man and the woman competing for the other woman. Thankfully, he didn't go down the angsty. It like you said earlier, this is an adult version of this bullshit, so there's not any angst really. It's treated maturely, which is
right.
My only way that I will tolerate that type of bullshit. But yeah, in the end, it really didn't pop up all that much. It was mostly about what was going on, and in the end, it's not really a love triangle. It's like a 1.5 They all agree to share, but the man and the other woman, the lesbian, agreed that we're not sharing one another. I don't know what you would actually call that. It's just a weird love thing. So I was like, okay, that's stupid, but that's whatever. That's just because that's not my bread and butter when it comes to how I feel about how romance should be, but whatever. But other than that, I enjoyed the book. I thought it was interesting what the magic he came up with, and if he gets creative enough in the other books, the magic could be quite interesting if he actually expands upon it. So yes.
Nice. I might check this one out. That sounds actually pretty good.
It is. It is fun. I will say it was a very fun book, with all the little things that he does do and what he can do, and what they do explore with the bounds of the rules that he set in place for the magic. Like,
right.
They say that you really can't do certain things, like pulling a whole person out, but they do things to get around that. I don't know. It's weird. It's very, like I said, it's very interesting what they do with the magic in the book itself. So yeah, I definitely read it. It's not very long. As the hardback version is only 308 pages.
Wow.
So yeah, so the rest, the other versions are obviously much shorter.
Right.
So yeah, there you go.
I like shorter because, as you can tell, it takes me a bit to read longer things.
Honestly, that's why I've if you look at my read books this year, most of it's urban fantasy, for the simple fact that on average they're less than 400 pages. Most of the time they're like 350 and below.
Wow.
And that's because I've read some longer fantasy this year. Like I did read a Wheel of Time book. I read the first book I read Dragonbone Chair. I've read some decent length fantasy, but it's been very rare because I just don't feel like sitting here for 2 or more weeks trying to get through a book. And that's spending most of my time reading.
I started The Wise Man's Fear an embarrassingly long amount of time ago.
Yeah, and so I want to do other things, and I want to read other books, and the longer I spend on just one book means it'll take me that much longer to get to another.
I should also point out right now that I think that Wise Man's Fear is very good, but Yeah, it was nice to read a 280-page book that was not in any way similar to that in the middle of reading it, because it was a good break.
Yeah, see,
But
that's usually when I take a break from a long book, it is something completely different.
How very Monty Python.
Yeah. Which is why I picked up Metro 2033, and the fact that I wanted to read something sci-fi. I don't quite know how sci-fi this will be outside the dystopian thing, but it'll be. I can't wait to read and see, because I played the game, so I'll compare what they did.
Very nice. Libriomancer, Jim Hines.
Yeah. Which
Gonna be picking that up at some.
Pat said that pretty much anything the guy writes is great, and if you look at a picture of him on Goodreads, the man looks like he came out of the 70s. He's wearing a very colorful hat and a very colorful picture. Got a big old beard.
A big bushy beard.
A great bushy beard.
Okay. God, I haven't watched that movie in a while.
Yeah, right. So, Trent, what you got for me?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna do something a little weird first, and talk a little bit about a book I'm not reviewing. I almost reviewed this book this week, but I decided not to because I don't have enough to say about it. But I read Blood Meridian, which is a Cormac McCarthy book, considered one of the best novels, best American novels ever written, by a lot of highfalutin critics out there.
We're all about the highfalutin here on the show this week.
Highfalutin.
We've discussed 2 works of actual literature this time.
Yeah.
That's not common for us. Our listener base is going to be very shocked.
Well, there is a lot of violence in Blood Meridian. It is probably one of the most nihilistic and, I guess, gross without being too detailed in what it's explaining. I mean, it's the story is this the person it follows. You never know their name. It's just the boy.
Hey, boy.
The boy.
Oh, the boy.
Brandon, do not go there. I heard where you were going with that, Mr. T.
Oh, Lord.
Who, he basically runs away from home in Kentucky and goes to the American West. This is set in the 1800s.
Kentucky.
Huh?
Of course you run away to Kentucky.
Yeah. But he
we apologize to any of our Kentucky listeners.
But he runs away to, like, Texas, and
well, that's a bad mistake right now.
Yeah.
That was a decision right there.
And he gets in cahoots with this military guy who wants him to come to Mexico and kill some Mexicans, and
okay.
And once they get there, they actually are employed by some Mexicans to kill Indians. Yes, this is a. There's a lot of racism in this book, but it's not the author's racism; it's the character's racism. Now,
and there is a difference, people.
Yeah. Now, Cormac McCarthy is pretty hard to read for some people. He doesn't use quotation marks when a character is talking, so it can get confusing very fast.
Isn't that just like a feature of postmodernism?
No, not specifically. It all depends on the style of the author.
Or laziness.
That's what I
don't think it's laziness.
That's what I thought. It's like when I first heard about postmodernism and I started reading about it, it's like, yes, it has a feature of a lack of punctuation. I was like, are you sure they're just not fucking lazy?
Well, see,
I can say that it's not just all postmodernism because Pynchon uses punctuation. But of course, he has to break up all those damn descriptions that he puts in the page.
No,
he puts a lot in there.
Cormac McCarthy says he doesn't use it because he finds it unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
Uh,
In other words, he really hated his English teacher whenever he was in middle school.
it's sort of like semicolons, where people don't really use them anymore. And a lot of our authors are against using semicolons.
Yeah, there are so many like style guideline changes that are taking place in fiction right now. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and this has been going on. The semicolon thing has been going on since the '60s, because Kurt Vonnegut hated semicolons, hated them. But John Irving, who was taught by Kurt Vonnegut, loved using them, and so Kurt Vonnegut would get kind of annoyed whenever he read one of John Irving's novels. But yeah, anyway, Blood Meridian is... I chose not to review it because it's kind of hard to review. Because there's really no story. It's... They go here and do this. They go here and do this. They go here and do this. It's like trying to read an RPG.
But now, has it ever been adapted into an RPG?
No.
Probably a good thing.
And it's one of the few Cormac McCarthy books that has not been turned into a movie. I mean, there's a lot of child killing in the book. Yeah, this Gang of Marauders, which is based on a real gang of marauders from that time period. I forget what they're called. You know, they were originally supposed to kill certain people to get money. They were they were headhunters, and they were like, you know, we can get more money, and since we're only bringing the scalps back, the people that are paying us won't really know who the scalps are from.
That's messed up.
Yeah. So they just start killing everyone they come across. And there's talks of like, you know, testicles being cut off and all that sort of stuff, but it's not detailed. It's just said as a matter of fact.
So it's not like the book I just read.
No, it's not. And it's a pretty short book. It's only like 300 pages.
His books are not long.
Except for one called Sutri, which is very different from his other books, and that one's like 600 pages.
Jesus.
But yeah, I have to say again, Cormac McCarthy is not for everyone.
No. I mean, I've only read one book of his, and that was The Road.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's really funny. Like, I really like The Road, and everybody who I speak to who really likes Cormac McCarthy's like, that's his worst book.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's his most popular work, you know.
I mean, fair enough. Fair enough if you liked him before he was popular or whatever, but it's still I still liked the book.
Yeah.
Don't fault me for liking a damn book by a good author.
Yeah. I would sort of recommend Blood Meridian because I can definitely see how it's a classic. And it was an experience. Okay, on to my real review. I'm going to do something a little different today and review a series of comics, or half a series of comics, rather. So, the Dark Tower comics, and obviously these are based on Stephen King's world of Eld.
Unlike the movie Dark Tower, which is not based off of the world of Eld.
Yeah, and it's not based on the 1981 electronic board game by Milton Bradley either.
Tisk.
You know, I'm surprised there hasn't been a Dark Tower video game.
I'm surprised there hasn't been like one of those ridiculous European style board games based on Dark Tower. I'd play the hell out of that as long as it's not based off that shitty movie.
I think it could make a pretty good JRPG.
That's any book, really, that's got an interesting world. But unfortunately, they don't turn those into JRPGs.
No,
They turn them into half-ass action games.
They like to be original with their JRPGs. Well, original
that's
in that they're telling the same story over and over again, but you know. Anyway, this series started back in 2007, I think, with one called The Gunslinger Born, and instead of just telling the story of the books straight on through, basically what this comic series did was fill in the gaps in the books. Now, I think the first one, if I remember correctly, is based on Roland's childhood. You've read that one, but it was a long time ago. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it was. I think that one takes place between Wizard and Glass and Gunslinger in a way.
Okay, yeah, I think most of the original series does. And I have to say it was pretty hit or miss, that original series.
Yeah, I didn't start enjoying it until the second run came out.
Yeah. Obviously, you kind of have to have read Wizard and Glass before you read that. I mean, it fills in the major plot points, but if you do that, you're kind of messing up the enjoyment you would get from reading Wizard and Glass, if you get any enjoyment from it at all.
I can think of some people who were not particularly thrilled by Wizard and Glass.
Yeah, me being one of them.
Like Joe detested that novel, and it took her like 3 months to finally finish it.
Jeez.
Well, it is, out of the series, the most different from the
it's polarizing as hell. And I understand why. I loved it. I thought it was kind of great in its way.
I enjoyed it. I never felt there was anything wrong.
But it's
pacing
a book-long flashback.
Yeah, the pacing is abysmal.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
no
like,
matter
okay,
how you...
they're stuck in this town for 500-something pages, counting cattle. That's what they're there to do. There's other stuff going on. And the whole romance story just did nothing for me at all.
You see, that was Joe's problem. She's like, oh my god, I just wish they'd fuck already.
Yeah, that doesn't happen till the last fourth of the book.
Yeah, she was pretty irritated by the fact that clearly these two people are going to have sex and it's going to ruin everything, and then it just takes the entire goddamn book to finally happen. And of course
our main character ignores it while his friends know it's going to happen.
Yep.
That he's ruining everything. And hey, it does ruin everything. It's very Romeo and Juliet in that way, which I think is what he was going for. But yeah, the comic series is odd. A lot of it follows Shimi, who is a Aspergerish character from the from Wizard and Glass. Again, not a character that really did anything for me. But I think that the original run, which was 5 different stories, I think: Gunslinger Born, Long Road Home, Treachery, Fall of Gilead, and Battle of Jericho Hill, those got better as it went along.
Right.
by the time you're getting to the Battle of Jericho Hill, what was written about that in the actual book series, I think didn't come up until book 5 or 7. Most of the explanation of it. It's been a long time since I read the last 3 books of the Dark Tower series. I've read the first 4 since then, but no. Now after that, they immediately started on another series, which they just called the Gunslinger. They called it that because, hey, after the first 2, I guess you would call trades, they started following the Gunslinger book. Now I've only read one of those so far, because I just finished The Journey Begins, and I'm on the Little Sisters of Valyria right now. Those are set before the Gunslinger book starts. Journey Begins is completely new. I mean, I don't think anything that Stephen King had written was in that. I mean, there could have been, and I've just forgotten. But it has Roland having his own Billy Bumbler, and it's set like I think 12 years after the Battle of Jericho Hill, so it's before he meets up with Jake and Eddie and Susanna, but you know, I think it's before the Little Sisters of Valyria as well. The timeline's kind of confusing because they jump back and forth. I'm kind of not excited about reading the rest of this because it's just the Gunslinger. Well. It's like, oh, I'm reading the first book again, but in a format that's not as interesting. I get pictures this time. Yay. Although if you read the...
More than like 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Not just color plates this time.
Right. Which those are beautiful in the hardcover.
Yeah, and the ones for the first book are done by George Whelan, I think.
I think you're right.
Or Michael Whelan, or whatever his name is, who did the cover for the Dragonbone Chair and most of Tad Williams' books, actually. And some, heavy metal albums. Now, after they finished that one, they went to do the Drawing of the Three, which they just recently completed, like, earlier this year.
I was not aware they'd gotten that far. I need to catch up on this just so I can see a comic book version of that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading that one.
I want to see the big crab looking creatures.
Did a check.
Did a check.
Yeah, exactly.
The lobstrosities. Yeah, that's what they're
Yes.
I just want to know if they're going to do the Wastelands, because that's my favorite Dark Tower book.
Well, they've done everything else, so why not?
I guess I don't know how they've sold.
And like comic books have to sell really well to keep going.
Well, they did have a break of like over a year between the Gunslinger and the Drawing of the Three, so they weren't originally going to do that. Or hey, they could do one of the Wind Through the Keyhole. That'd be cool too.
Yeah, because that was actually a really cool book.
Yeah, that's like that's the forgotten Dark Tower book, because no one mentions it because it's basically just a fable.
Yep, it's just like Wizard in Glass.
Yeah, but a lot shorter.
And a lot more readable, because I like Wizard in Glass, but damn, it can be a slog.
Yeah, even on audiobook.
Things I never tried. The audiobook version.
Well, see, the fourth one was done with the guy that a lot of people really liked reading them. He died, I think, before the 5th book came out.
Yes, he did.
But I didn't really like his narration. He made mainly because of Shimi.
I don't remember his accents for the kids. All I remember is his accent for the Roland, Eddie, and Susanna, which I thought were pretty damn good.
Well, see, I've only listened to the 4th one. And what I did was, both times I listened to it while trying to read the book, I read the first 100 pages of the book. So I didn't hear him do Eddie or Jake or Susanna. I just heard the flashback. And then when that was over, I went back to reading. Because it was that whole these were my years as a teenager, as told by as told by Roland, that I just could not get through. But yeah, if they ever do the Wastelands, I'll read them. If they do Wizard and Glass, hey, it'll be a lot shorter.
I don't know that it would be.
Well, they've only been doing like 5 or 6 trades per story, so that's like 25 or 30 issues. So not much.
Yeah, not really.
It does make me kind of want to read the. You know, they did one of The Stand.
I've seen that as well.
That one's finished. I figured I'd read the book first, though, because that's one of the few King books I have left to read. That's the one I was saving for last. So it'll be a while before I get to that one. And I'm still disappointed of what they did with the Talisman comic book, which was stop after the first trade.
Yeah, I remember when the first one came out, and we, because you got that at Fanboy, right?
No, I got it on vacation one time.
I thought you picked that up at Fanboy.
But yeah, it just 6 issues of it came out, and then they stopped. I was like, I didn't get to see the whole story.
Read it in the book.
But that's what happens when Marvel isn't putting these out. I mean, that was Del Rey, who I didn't even know did comics.
I was about to say, I was like, I didn't know they did comics.
And me either.
Now we know why.
Yeah. But yeah, the artwork is good in these comics. That's one thing I have to give them. The artwork is very good.
I'm going to absolutely agree with you. That was one of the reasons I actually wanted to read it, was that I thought the artwork was really cool. And that was even before I got into comics again.
Yeah.
I say again, but before I ever really got into comics in any real... Reading Star Wars comics when I'm 10 doesn't count.
Now, they originally had Jay Lee doing a lot of the art, but starting with the Gunslinger run, he left. But still, the artwork's good. I could barely notice the difference. The only difference is Roland looks different in each of these trades. I'm like, oh, he's become James Bond.
I'd have to go back and look at that, because I don't remember it all.
I mean, he hasn't turned black yet.
Oh!
I had no problem with that.
Neither did I. That was not my problem with the film.
No, everything else except for that and Matthew McConaughey were my problems with the film.
You know, I find that Matthew McConaughey's performance is very divisive. He was He was the only person on that screen having any fucking fun.
Yeah.
And man, was he fun to watch. He had so many like silly damn lines that I just loved.
It was like they got Nicolas Cage to be in it.
Yeah.
Now that would have been something to watch.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, I would have went and watched that one.
I'm sorry, we don't have chicken where I'm from.
Yeah.
But
Then how does he know what a chicken is?
well, he has traveled between worlds.
That's true. That's true.
So.
Yeah, that movie condensing a seven book or 8 book now.
Yeah.
So it actually, I mean, I thought it was just the first book.
Oh no,
No.
it's not even Brandon. It's not even close to something like that.
They legit took all 7.
They
No,
took
no.
parts from all 7.
This is let me see if I can try and make this make sense. Okay, imagine if you were the person tapped to write the adaptation of the Dark Tower, but you had to do it in a weekend, so you didn't have time to read 7 whole books. Because who really has time to read 7 whole books of fiction to
And the
write an
publishers
adaptation?
have told you it has to be a bestseller or else.
Well,
Yes. Okay, so Brandon, I want you to hold that in your head now. So you have to go to Wikipedia, and you see all these words. You see all these words, Brandon, and these words have like really brief definitions that you just grab and you stuck on a sheet of paper. And it's like, oh, okay, so there's a guy's gunslinger, and there's a kid, and he's got, he's like the kid from The Shining. So we'll even use the word Shining. Okay, let's keep going. And then there's this thing, and there's a tower, and 19. Okay, all right. And then you're like, okay, you know what the studio heads said? The studio heads were like, we really need to make money on this, so it's got to be like an adaptation of those young adult books. So then it also has the story arc of a young adult novel.
Yep.
Because the main character is no longer Roland. It's not about the gunslinger anymore. It's about fucking Jake. Yeah.
And Jake is a little older than he was in the first book.
Right.
He looks to be about 15.
And nobody understands him at school because he's different.
Yep.
It's a young adult adaptation.
And he's got an non-understanding stepfather.
Yep. We even got that cliche in there.
And a mother who won't stand up to the stepfather.
I don't remember that in the book.
It's not.
It's
His
not.
parents left him. Yeah.
Well, they just weren't around.
Right, yeah.
Much. He was raised by his nanny, pretty much.
But they didn't treat him like dog shit and send him off to the Man in Black Special Academy for psychics.
With people with fake skin.
Yes. God, it's just... Joe was so mad. Like, this is the kind of movie where I should have been pissed off the whole damn time. But because
we knew
it was
going to be horrible.
It's like, because it was such a drastic departure from any of the source material, I was like, this is so abysmally stupid that I can't help but laugh like hell at the complete misunderstanding of the source material. It's like, Trent had it right earlier, it's kind of like the Super Mario Brothers movie, where you have the names of these characters and you have the location names, but it does not in any way even closely resemble Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, if only Dennis Hopper were still alive to be in this movie.
Oh my god. Dennis Hopper is like the reason to watch the Super Mario Brothers movie, because he's trying. He's trying so hard.
Which only Matthew McConaughey did in this. And I think it was just like, screw it. I know this movie is horrible. I'm going to enjoy it.
Oh yeah, and he did. But you know, like, the thing
Stop
is, like,
breathing.
yes.
That is how he kills people. He says, stop breathing.
Which, I mean, that's dumb. Don't get me wrong. That is some
It
dumb
is
shit.
very dumb.
But at least it matches the concept of the Man in Black, that he was a seducer. He had influence over people. It makes sense. They chose a really stupid way to show that, but it's in there at least. Roland, God, you know, Idris Elba's not a bad actor. I think Idris Elba's an excellent actor.
Soft.
But he's not... He wasn't Roland.
No. They made him too soft.
that's part of it, absolutely, and he didn't really do anything as a character. He just kind of stood there and, like, spouted exposition, and he's supposed to be the main character, but he's not.
God, hearing you describe this film and reading this person's review of this film, I'm wondering if y'all saw the same film. Vox's Aja Romano wrote that the film's disjointed narrative structure favoring fast-paced action over exposition and backstory gave it a basic, wondrous glee that made it feel more like a Stephen King film than any other Stephen King film since Stand By Me. And applauded, and I'm not finished, and applauded its faithfulness to the King's fictional multiverse.
Okay, you know what? I'll give it that. I will give it that. It did, in fact, try to help establish what will soon be known as the Stephen King cinematic universe once it comes out next weekend.
Yeah.
Because there's a theme park about Pennywise that they walk through the ruins of when Jake goes to Midworld.
Yep.
And I remember, like, when that happened, I was like, oh my god, are they really going to tie this to the upcoming It movie?
Whoa. Are you telling me that this film is another victim of the Marvel curse that has plagued even the horror franchise of the reboot of The Mummy?
I think that is, in fact, what they are attempting to do, Brandon. And I hope, like hell, that it never really clicks. Or if they do make this happen, that they reboot The Dark Tower and not include it in the original canon of their cinematic universe. Because early responses to it are not bad, from what I'm hearing.
Well, that's good, because at least the trailer for that one looked faithful.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Once I saw the picture of new Pennywise, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to watch the trailer yet. I might go see the movie, but I'm not watching that trailer because clowns fucking creepy, man. And you know what?
And it's got one of the kids from Stranger Things, so that's cool too.
How sad is it that one of the Stephen King's hoped additions for any sequel or TV show is that Roland will have a hat.
What?
Because he didn't have a hat, I guess, in the movie, ever, but he says
I think he's going senile.
King says he suggests that it should be R-rated, and that Roland should be wearing a hat.
You know, that is one of the main things, that this was a PG-13 movie.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. So, like, you won't have an entire town getting massacred like in the fucking book.
Jake doesn't get almost fucked to death by a demon.
Right. There are actually no demons present.
No.
Like, none of the stuff that makes that setting so damned unusual and fascinating are there. It's an unfortunate adaptation.
It seemed almost made for TV.
It was worse than made for TV, because at least the made for TV Stephen King stuff, it tries to get around the language, violence, and sexuality in its really, like, half-hearted way, but at least it gets the fucking plot right.
Yeah,
this movie didn't even come close to getting the plot right.
You knew this was going to be bad when it was 5 years in development, and then they were like, oh yeah, it's coming out next year. And they hadn't even started filming yet.
Yep.
It was like, oh crap, we're about to lose the rights.
And that's probably what's going to happen. Is that
Fantastic Four, this bitch.
Yeah.
Because that's what studios do. They're about to lose the rights. If they don't do something with the material, they'll half-ass a movie out of it just so they can keep the rights.
I wish they'd at least quarter-assed this movie. They didn't even get that much. This was like,
that's true.
I'm serious. Another one of the things that plagued this movie, and like behind the scenes, is that 2 studios made the film. 2 studios worked on one film together. And whenever they could not decide on a tone and story, they just batted the fucking film back and forth between each other, between the two studios, and let a bunch of people edit it, which resulted in a fucking catastrophe of a finished film product.
There needs to be a documentary about the fuck up that this movie was.
I won't lie to you. I would love to see a director's cut.
Yeah.
I would genuinely be happy to rewatch this movie as the director intended. I know the director's not a good director. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying that he would be able to make a better film.
The movie was incomprehensible as hell.
I mean,
if you had not read the series, you wouldn't know what the hell was going on. I read the series, and sometimes I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Well, I followed it, but I was like, wait a minute. They're doing what with this now?
Like, okay, that took place in the Wastelands, when he went into the house to travel to Midworld. I was like, okay, yeah, that's from Wastelands, yeah.
But no Rose.
No Rose.
Fuck you, movie. There was no Rose. The Rose.
There was a 1408.
Yeah, I did see that.
It was Portal 1408, I think. Or was that the Portal later on? One of them was 19, one was 1408. I'm like, really?
Retcon. That's part of the Stephen King cinematic universe.
Are you going to have him own a dog named Cujo, too?
Look, that's in the sequel, motherfucker.
Have the song "Stand by Me" in here somewhere.
That's gonna be the name of the Billy Bumbler if they ever bring the Billy Bumbler in. It won't be Oi anymore. It'll be fucking Cujo. And then when they finally meet Stephen King, they're like, "Oh, I remember whenever I had a dog like that. You better have him put down soon."
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I hate fan service.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been acceptable if the movie hadn't been a complete disaster otherwise. But it's funny,
it was an enjoyable train wreck.
I wouldn't even say that exactly, but I enjoyed laughing at how much.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like The Room. Like, there's certain degrees to making a shitty movie. Like, whenever you're making a movie that's so bad that it's enjoyable, you don't do it on purpose. You can't. Like, you just can't make those two goals line up because you'll end up making Sharknado. Instead, this movie was just bad. I'm laughing because I'm a fan, and I can see that somebody basically read Cliff Notes' version of The Dark Tower and tried to adapt from the Cliff Notes. They didn't adapt The Dark Tower. They adapted a fucking, series Bible.
Yeah.
And they didn't even understand the series Bible.
What I found really funny was before it came out, Stephen King was like, oh, yeah, this is a great movie, and I hope it does well, and all that stuff. After it comes out, silence. He says nothing. He has not mentioned that movie since it came out.
Even the director of Maximum Overdrive can't say this is a good film.
Hey, I like Maximum Overdrive because it's so bad it's good.
Oh yeah, exactly. It gets it though. Like, that movie's entertaining.
Yeah.
This is very bad.
Yeah.
Although, what really shocked me is that Sean liked it.
Really?
Yes, he said he enjoyed it. I told him that I did not share his opinion, and that I was glad that he had a good time watching it. Because I tell you what, I was literally bent over laughing at some of the things that happened in that movie.
It was like when we watched the Left Behind movie.
Actually, no, it's not, because the Left Behind movie was frustrating. I wanted it to be stupid.
Yeah.
But it wasn't stupid enough.
No, I mean, it had Nicolas Cage in it, and they didn't really use him. They didn't let him go all out.
He's like, here I am, I'm stirring my cup of coffee, and I'm going to flirt with this stewardess in this scene. And yeah, I'm going to be a really nice guy. Because that's what they paid me money for on the Left Behind movie.
And why am I in a Left Behind movie? Because I had to sell my mansion. Yeah.
You mean his castle or whatever?
Yeah.
Speaking of, and I think we should wrap it up after this because we're derailing once I bring this up. Have you seen the documentary, The Death of Superman Lives?
No, I've wanted to, but I have not gotten around to it yet.
I got to watch it last weekend, and it is excellent. Brandon also watched it.
Did they talk about the spider?
Yes.
Yes, extensively.
That was
serious.
finally put in Wild Wild West.
It never gets old hearing Kevin Smith talk about the giant spider.
But it did end up in Wild Wild West. The guy got it into that.
Yep. John Peters is a crazy son of a bitch.
I'm one of the few people that likes Wild Wild West, though.
I'm not going to say shit. I love Wild Wild West. That movie is some kind of something.
It's not a good movie.
No.
I can say that.
Not a good
it's
movie.
Enjoyable, though.
Oh, it's damned entertaining, but it's really dumb.
Yeah.
And it's got some of that, like, very bland late 90s trying to be funny humor. And Kevin Kline totally being the thing that I enjoy most in that movie.
Yeah. Got Kevin Kline and Kenneth Branagh.
Yes.
Don't you just hate that song?
God. I'm sorry. I think it's a funny movie. I don't think it's a good movie, but it's definitely better than most modern shit, I feel like sometimes.
Yeah.
I just want to point out, while looking at our live stream while we've been recording the show, we just lost one of our viewers because we said we like Wild Wild West, I think.
Yeah, it's because I turned it off.
Well, anyway.
I hope
we're
you
gonna
have enjoyed this conversation about the Dark Tower and bad movies.
Yes, because now those are officially tied together. You know, it's funny, Trent, whenever we first met in college, and that was one of the things, you know, that we had in common was the fact that we both really liked the Dark Tower. And even then, whenever the first, like, whispers of a Dark Tower movie finally coming to fruition, I remember, you know, because we found out that the people who wrote, like, the Da Vinci Code were working on it, were like, oh my god, this is going to be a disaster. Here we are.
And it's worse.
Yeah,
it's
something
sad,
alive
but I
in
think
here.
Ron Howard might have done a better job.
Well, we get to see
he
if
still
he
got his name on it as a executive producer.
Oh man, you know, if we're coming up, we're gonna have to see what he does with a Star Wars movie. So,
yeah, I was looking forward to that movie before they lost the original director.
yeah, but at the same time, I'm glad that in a way, I'm kind of glad the original director's gone because apparently they were going for really goofy. And not in a good way. Like
they were going to put Goofy in the movie? Damn, well, Disney.
Yeah, seriously. Disney's all about that tie-in now. No, apparently Donald Glover has made a few comments about the film, saying that he's so glad that that Ron Howard's working on it now because the way it was going before did not work. And he was like, this is not going to be a good movie. This is going to be a train wreck.
In the words of Will Smith, because damn.
And with that, tying this all together, we bring you to the close of this week's episode of the Expanded Universe. And we hope you'll come back in a couple weeks and listen to hear us discuss mostly books again on that episode because we will not be discussing the Dark Tower film again.
Right.
Because it's done. And we hope you'll join us on the Z Trigger podcast as well this week. We've got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. And if you're watching us on live stream, stick around. We've got another show to record. And until then, you can join us on our social media links at Facebook and Trigger. on Facebook and Twitter at ZTrigger Live. Yeah, I saved it there. Yeah, sort of. And yes, so thank you all for listening, and have a great week.
Be seeing you.